The mining tunnels were dark and quiet. Most people stayed away from them. But Gia liked it that way. At 16, she was small for her age, with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. Life as an orphan on the colony of New Bizen had taught her to find value where others saw nothing. Just a little farther, she whispered to herself, her small light cutting through the darkness. Other orphans searched the colony's trash heaps for scraps to sell. Gia preferred these old tunnels. They held secrets, and secrets could be worth more than junk. The ground shook suddenly. Gia grabbed the wall to steady herself. Quakes were common on this planet, but this felt different, closer, somehow. When the rumbling stopped, she noticed a crack in the wall that hadn't been there before. "Hello," she called, shining her light through the opening. The beam revealed a new cave beyond. Curiosity pushed her forward. She squeezed through the gap, scraping her elbows on rough stone. The cave sparkled. Crystal formations caught her light, throwing rainbow colors across the walls. But it wasn't the crystals that made Gia gasp. In the center of the cave lay 2 large eggs, each as big as her chest. They glowed with a soft blue light. "Who are you?" she whispered, stepping closer. The eggs weren't like any bird or reptile eggs she'd seen in the colony's small zoo. Their shells looked almost metallic, with swirling patterns that seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them. As if responding to her voice, one egg rocked slightly. A small crack appeared on its surface. Gia froze. She should run. She should tell someone. But who? The colony officials would take the eggs for study. The miners would probably break them open looking for valuable materials. The crack on the first egg grew larger. A small sound, like a chirp, came from inside. The second egg began to move too. "Oh no," Gia said, kneeling beside them. "I didn't mean to disturb you." The first egg split open. A small head emerged, covered in shimmering blue scales. It had a long snout and bright, intelligent eyes that fixed on Gia immediately. The creature chirped again, struggling to free itself from the shell. Gia's mind raced. The creature looked like the dragons from old Earth stories, impossible. Yet here it was. As the second egg cracked open, revealing a slightly smaller creature with lighter, pearly scales. Gia made a decision. "You're not safe here," she told them, removing her thin jacket. The tunnel was cold, but these babies needed help. They looked weak, their small bodies trembling as they fully emerged from their shells. She gently wrapped both creatures in her jacket. They were each about the size of a small cat, with delicate wings folded against their sides and long tails that curled around her wrists. As she picked them up, "I'll take care of you," she promised, not knowing why she felt so certain they could understand her. "My name is Gia." The darker one nuzzled against her hand. The lighter one made a soft trilling sound. Both seemed to relax in her arms. Getting them back to her hiding place wouldn't be easy. Gia lived in an abandoned maintenance shaft near the colony's edge. It wasn't much, just a small room with her few belongings, but it was private. No one bothered her there. "We need to be very quiet," she told her new companions as she made her way back. Through the tunnel, the baby dragon seemed to understand, remaining still and silent in her arms. Outside, the 3 moons of New Bizen cast enough light for Gia to see her path. She stuck to the shadows, avoiding the few people still out at this late hour. The colony was small, just 5,000 people trying to make this harsh planet home. Everyone knew everyone, which made it hard for an orphan to stay invisible. Twice she had to duck behind buildings as colony security passed by. The dragons stayed quiet, as if sensing the danger. When she finally reached her small home, Gia quickly slipped inside and sealed the door. "Here we are," she said, placing the dragons on her thin sleeping mat. "It's not much, but it's safe." She found an old container and filled it with water. The dragons drank eagerly. Food would be harder. What did dragons eat? Meat, probably, but Gia had little of that. She found some protein, paced her own dinner for the night, and offered it to them. After sniffing it cautiously, both dragons ate it quickly. "You were hungry," Gia said, watching them with wonder. "I'll get more tomorrow." As the dragons finished eating, they began exploring their new home. The darker one, slightly larger and more bold, climbed the walls with surprising ease, its claws finding purchase on the metal surface. The lighter one stayed closer to Gia, watching her with curious eyes. "I need to call you something," Gia said. She thought for a moment. "You," she pointed to the darker one, "will be Ty, and you." She smiled at the lighter one, "will be Hannah." Both dragons turned at the sound of their new names. Ty chirped and Hannah made a soft purring sound that Gia took as approval. That night, the dragons slept curled against Gia's side, their small bodies warm. She lay awake for hours, her mind racing. What were these creatures? Where had they come from? The eggs had been in a cave that looked untouched for years. Had someone left them there? Or had they been there since before humans came to this planet? Whatever the answer, Gia knew one thing for certain. These dragons were now her responsibility. For the first time since losing her parents in the colony's great fever 5 years ago, she felt needed. These strange creatures trusted her, depended on her. "I won't let anyone hurt you," she whispered as sleep finally began to claim her. "I promise." In her dreams that night, Gia saw stars, countless stars stretching across the void, and among them, shapes like her dragons, but enormous, flying between worlds. She didn't understand the dream, but it left her with a strange feeling when she woke, a feeling that her life had changed forever. 3 months passed quickly. Gia's life had changed in ways she never imagined. Taking care of Ty and Hannah was hard work, but she loved every minute of it. The dragons grew fast. Too fast. When she first found them, they were the size of cats. Now, just 12 weeks later, they were as big as large dogs. Ty's midnight blue scales had darkened, and small ridges had formed along his spine. Hannah's pearly scales now shimmered with hints of pink and gold when light hit them. "You two are getting too big for this place," Gia said one morning as she squeezed past Ty to reach her small storage box. Finding enough food for them was becoming difficult. Gia had taken extra jobs around the colony cleaning, carrying messages, anything that paid. Most of her earnings went to buying meat scraps and protein packs for the dragons. Today, she had managed to trade some rare crystals she found in the tunnels for a bag of fish parts from the colony's aquaculture tanks. The dragons watched eagerly as she emptied the bag onto their feeding plate. "Slow down." She laughed as they dove into the meal. "No one's going to take it from you." As the dragons ate, Gia checked her small living space for any signs that might give away her secret. Keeping two growing dragons hidden was getting harder every day. Twice now, neighbors had asked about strange noises. Gia had blamed it on faulty pipes. After eating, Ty stretched his wings. They were growing stronger, the thin membranes now spanning nearly 2 meters when fully extended. He couldn't fly yet, the space was too small, but Gia could tell he wanted to. "Soon," she promised, stroking his head. "I'm looking for a better place." Hannah came to Gia's side, resting her head on the girl's lap. Of the 2 dragons, Hannah was more gentle, more connected to Gia. Ty was curious and bold, always exploring, testing his limits. But Hannah seemed to understand Gia's feelings without being told. That night, as Gia tried to sleep on her mat, now crowded with 2 large dragons, something strange happened. Hannah woke her by pressing her snout against Gia's forehead. The touch was gentle but insistent. "What is it?" Gia asked sleepily. Hannah's eyes, large and bright even in the darkness, stared into hers. Suddenly, Gia felt a strange sensation in her mind, like a door opening. Images flooded in, stars, planets, a large ship moving through space. She saw creatures like Ty and Hannah, but much bigger, walking onto legs, wearing what looked like armor. "What's happening?" Gia gasped. Sitting up, Ty was awake now too, his eyes glowing softly in the dark. He moved closer, touching his snout to Gia's hand. More images came, a smaller ship, a crash, pain, darkness. Then 2 eggs, placed in a crystal cave, a soft blue light surrounding them. "You're showing me your memories?" Gia whispered in awe. "But how? You weren't even born yet." Understanding came with the question. These weren't just animals. They were intelligent beings with memories passed down from their parents. And now, somehow, they were sharing those memories with her. "You're not from this planet," Gia said slowly. "You're from somewhere else, somewhere in space." Both dragons made soft sounds of agreement. Hannah sent another image, a group of the larger dragons, standing tall, wearing elaborate decorations. They looked important, powerful, Your family? Gia asked. More feelings flowed into her mind. Confirmation, pride, sadness. These weren't just any space dragons, they were important ones. Maybe leaders or rulers. And your parents' ship crashed here? They put your eggs in the cave to keep you safe? Tai sent an image of a damaged ship, of two large dragons working quickly to hide the eggs before the ship exploded. The feeling of loss was overwhelming. Tears filled Gia's eyes. You're orphans too, she whispered, hugging both dragons close. Just like me, that night changed everything. The mental connection between Gia and the dragons grew stronger each day. She learned that they called themselves the Drak, an ancient species that traveled between stars. Tai and Hannah couldn't tell her everything. Their memories were incomplete. Just fragments passed down from their parents, but it was enough to understand they were special. With the mental link established, the dragons grew even faster. Within weeks, they were the size of small horses. Keeping them hidden became impossible. We need to leave the colony, Gia told them one night. I found a cave system in the eastern hills. It's far enough away that no one goes there, but I can still visit you every day. Moving them was risky. They left in the middle of the night, when most colonists were asleep. Tai and Hannah followed Gia through back alleys and along dry creek beds, staying in shadows. Once, a security drone passed overhead, its searchlight sweeping the ground. The dragons pressed themselves against a rock wall, their scales changing color slightly to blend in. You can change your colors? Gia asked in surprise. Tai sent her an image of Drak using this ability to hide from enemies. It wasn't perfect camouflage, but in darkness, it helped them avoid detection. The cave was large and dry, with multiple chambers. A small stream ran nearby, providing water. It would be a good home for now. I'll bring food tomorrow, Gia promised as she prepared to leave. Try to stay deep in the cave during the day. Both dragons nudged her gently with their snouts, sending feelings of gratitude and affection. The mental bond between them had grown so strong that words weren't always needed. Gia could feel their emotions, and they could feel hers. As she walked back to the colony in the pre-dawn light, Gia realized how much her life had changed. 3 months ago, she was just another orphan, invisible and alone. Now she shared a bond with two incredible beings from another world. She didn't know what would happen next. The dragons were still growing. Soon they might be too big even for the cave. And what if someone from the colony discovered them? What if the Drak came looking for them? But for now, Gia had a purpose. She had a family. For the first time since losing her parents, she wasn't alone. And somewhere, deep in space, a signal had begun to pulse from the dragons' growing bodies, a beacon that would soon reach the stars. 6 months had passed since Gia found the dragons. Summer came to New Bizon, bringing hot days and short, warm nights. The eastern hills where Tai and Hannah now lived turned green with the planet's strange, fern-like plants. Gia visited the dragons every day, bringing food and spending hours with them. They had grown enormously. Tai now stood taller than Gia, his body nearly 4 meters long from nose to tail. His wings had developed fully, spanning 6 meters when stretched wide. Hannah was slightly smaller, but just as magnificent, her pearly scales now showing clear patterns of pink and gold. Both dragons could fly now. Gia would watch them soar above the hills in the evening, their bodies graceful against the sunset. They were careful to fly only when darkness was falling and to stay away from the colony. Today, Gia arrived at the cave with a heavy pack. She had traded her week's earnings for meat and fish. I'm here, she called as she entered the cave. The dragons weren't inside. Gia set down her pack and walked deeper into the cave system. Still no sign of them. This was unusual. They always sensed when she was coming and met her at the entrance. Tai, Hannah? She called, a note of worry in her voice. She reached out with her mind, using the bond they shared. Immediately, she felt their presence and their alarm. Something was wrong. Gia ran back outside and looked up at the sky. She could just make out two shapes circling high above. The dragons were watching something. Following their gaze, Gia saw what had caught their attention. 3 people were climbing the hill toward the cave. They carried equipment, ropes, nets, and what looked like stun weapons used for capturing large animals. Prospectors, probably. The hills contained valuable minerals, and sometimes prospectors came looking for new deposits. But these men weren't looking at the ground. They were looking up at the dragons. Gia's heart raced. She had to warn Ty and Hannah. Through their mental link, she sent an urgent message: hide. People are coming. The dragons received her warning. They banked sharply and flew behind a ridge, out of sight. But it was too late. The men had seen them. Did you see that? One of the men shouted excitedly. I told you the rumors were true. Flying reptiles, another said. They'll be worth a fortune off-world. Gia felt sick. For months, there had been whispers in the colony about strange creatures seen in the eastern hills. She had hoped the stories would die down, but instead, they had attracted hunters. She had to protect Ty and Hannah. But how? 3 grown men with weapons against one 16-year-old girl. The men were getting closer. Gia stepped out from the cave entrance, blocking their path. This is private land, she lied. No one owned the hills, but they might not know that. The men stopped, surprised to see her. The tallest one, with a rough beard and hard eyes, spoke first. Move aside, girl. We're not here for you. There's nothing here, Gia said firmly. Just rocks and dirt. The second man, shorter but muscular, laughed. We saw them with our own eyes. To flying creatures. Worth more than you'll see in your lifetime. They're not for sale, Gia said, standing her ground. The third man, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. He was older than the others, with cold eyes that reminded Gia of the predators that sometimes prowled the colony's edges. Last chance, he said softly. Step aside, or things will get unpleasant. Gia didn't move. Through the bond, she could feel Ty and Hannah's concern. They wanted to help her, but she was telling them to stay hidden. She couldn't let these men capture them. Fine, the older man sighed. He nodded to the others. Move her. The bearded man reached for Gia's arm. She tried to step back, but he was too quick. His hand closed around her wrist, squeezing painfully. What happened next surprised everyone, especially Gia. A surge of energy rushed through her body. It came through the bond, from Ty and Hannah, flowing into her like electricity. Her skin tingled, and the air around her seemed to shimmer with blue light. The man holding her yelled in pain and let go. His hand was red, as if burned. What the? He started, but never finished. With a roar that shook the hillside, Ty and Hannah appeared, landing on either side of Gia. They were magnificent and terrifying, their bodies glowing with the same blue energy that surrounded Gia. The men stumbled backward in fear. The older one reached for his stun weapon, but Gia raised her hand without thinking. A bolt of blue energy shot from her fingertips, hitting the weapon and knocking it from his grip. Gia stared at her hand in shock. How had she done that? The dragons moved forward, their tails lashing, wings spread wide to make them look even larger. They didn't attack, but their message was clear: leave or face the consequences. The men didn't need to be told twice. They turned and ran down the hill, dropping their equipment in their haste to escape. When they were gone, Gia turned to the dragons, her hands still tingling with strange energy. What just happened? She asked aloud. What did you do to me? Through their bond, images and feelings flowed. The Dracs shared energy with those they bonded with. It was part of their nature, a gift given only to those they trusted completely. The energy could be used for protection, for healing, for many things. But it changed the one who received it. Gia looked down at her hands. The blue glow was fading, but she could still feel the power humming beneath her skin. I'm not the same anymore, am I? She asked quietly. The dragons moved closer, surrounding her with their warmth. Their thoughts were clear. She was still Gia, but also something more now. The bond had changed her, as it was meant to do. That night, as the 3 of them rested in the cave, Gia knew they couldn't stay. The men would return, probably with others. The colony would learn about the dragons, and then what? They would be captured, studied, maybe even killed. We need to leave, she told Ty and Hannah. Find somewhere far from here, somewhere safe. But even as she said it, she felt something strange through their bond. The dragons were sending a signal, had been sending it for weeks now. A call for help, a beacon announcing their presence. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, someone had heard. As Gia drifted to sleep between her two protectors, she didn't know that high above New Bizon, In the darkness of space, a ship had just emerged from the void between stars. A ship filled with beings who had been searching for Ty and Hannah for a very long time. The Drac had come to find their lost children. Gia woke to a strange sound. It was still dark outside the cave, but something had changed in the air. A low humming vibrated through the ground, making small stones tremble. Ty and Hannah were already awake, their bodies tense. Through their bond, Gia felt their mix of excitement and fear. "What is it?" she whispered, moving to the cave entrance. The night sky answered her question. A light, brighter than any of New Bizen's 3 moons, was moving across the stars. It was too large and too low to be a star. As Gia watched, the light split into several smaller lights, all descending toward the planet. "Ships," she breathed. "Spaceships." The dragons moved beside her, their thoughts flowing into her mind. These were Drac ships. Their people had come. Gia's heart raced. Part of her was happy for Ty and Hannah. Their people had found them. But another part felt a sharp pain. Would they leave with their people? Would she lose the only family she had? The dragons sensed her fear. They pressed against her, their thoughts clear. They would not leave her. The bond they shared was unbreakable. By morning, the whole colony was in chaos. The ships had been seen by everyone. 5 large vessels now hovered over New Bizen, with smaller craft moving between them. Colony security forces were on high alert, and the governor had ordered everyone to stay in their homes. Of course, Gia wasn't in her home. She was in the hills with 2 dragons who were now the size of small houses. Through their mental link, Ty and Hannah were receiving information from the ships above. They shared it with Gia. The Drac fleet had been searching for the lost royal eggs for years. When Ty and Hannah began sending their signal, the nearest ship had changed course immediately. Now the fleet commander, General Rock, was trying to communicate with the human colony, but was meeting resistance. "They're afraid," Gia told the dragons. "Humans have never met aliens before. Not officially, anyway." A new image came through the bond, a smaller ship, heading directly for their location. The Drac had found them. "Should we hide?" Gia asked, suddenly nervous. The dragon's response was calm confidence. These were their people. There was no danger. Within minutes, a sleek craft appeared in the sky above them. It was beautiful, with lines that reminded Gia of Ty and Hannah's own graceful forms. The ship descended slowly, landing in a clear area near the cave. Gia stood between the dragons as a door opened in the ship's side. 4 figures emerged. They walked on 2 legs, just as Gia had seen in the memories Ty and Hannah had shared. They were Drac in their mature form, taller than humans, with the same dragon-like features as Ty and Hannah, but adapted for walking upright. They wore what looked like armor that glowed with the same blue energy Gia had felt. The lead Drac, larger than the others and wearing more elaborate armor, stopped a few meters away. To Gia's surprise, the Drac bowed deeply, followed by the others, royal heirs. The lead Drac said in perfect Korean, "We have found you at last." Ty and Hannah moved forward, their thoughts excited but dignified. Through their bond, Gia understood they were greeting their people with proper royal protocol. The lead Drac turned to Gia, studying her with large, intelligent eyes. "Human child," he said, "I am General Rock, commander of the Drac fleet. You have done our people a service beyond measure by saving our royal heirs." Gia swallowed hard. "I didn't know they were royal. I just found them in a cave. Yet you cared for them, protected them, bonded with them." Rock's voice held wonder. "Such a bond is rare even among our own kind." One of the other Drac stepped forward, holding a device. It scanned Gia, projecting a field of light around her. "The bond is complete." This Drac said to Rock, "The human carries the royal energy signature." Rock's eyes widened. "Extraordinary." He turned back to Gia. "Young one, do you understand what has happened to you?" Gia thought about the energy that had flowed through her when she faced the prospectors. "They shared their power with me, but I don't really understand what it means." "It means," Rock said solemnly, "that you are now part of the royal family. By our most ancient laws, one who bonds with royal Drac becomes royal themselves." Gia blinked in confusion. "But I'm human." "Yes," Rock agreed. "The first human to join the Drac royal line. This is unprecedented." Through their bond, Ty and Hannah sent feelings of pride and joy. They had chosen Gia, had shared their essence with her. In their eyes, she was already family. Your colony leaders are resistant to our presence. Rock continued. They fear us, as is natural. But we cannot leave without the royal heirs, and now, it seems, without you as well. Me? Gia's voice rose in surprise. Why would I need to go? The bond you share cannot be broken by distance, Rock explained. But it would cause great pain to all three of you to be separated. And the royal heirs are still young. They need your guidance, your connection. Gia looked at Ty and Hannah, who gazed back with trust and affection. Could she really leave New Bizen? It had been her home her whole life, even if it hadn't always been kind to her. But then, what was really keeping her here? She had no family, few friends. The dragons had become her world. There's something else you should know, Rock said, his voice growing serious. The Drak are at war. A machine intelligence called the Void has been attacking our worlds for centuries. The royal bloodline carries genetic memory and abilities crucial to our defense. By saving Ty and Hannah, you may have saved our entire species. Gia felt the weight of his words. This was bigger than her life on a small colony planet. What happens now? She asked. We must speak with your leaders, Rock said. Establish diplomatic relations. And he hesitated. Prepare for your departure. If you choose to come with us, as if on cue, the sound of engines filled the air. Colony security vehicles were approaching, no doubt drawn by the Drak ships landing. It seems, Rock said calmly, that your people are coming to us. Gia took a deep breath and stepped forward, placing herself between the approaching vehicles and the Drak. Ty and Hannah moved with her, their presence giving her courage. Then I'll help you talk to them, she said. I know both sides now. As the vehicles crested the hill, Gia stood tall between two worlds, the human colony that had been her home, and the Drak who had become her family. Whatever happened next would change everything, not just for her, but for all of humanity. The first contact between humans and Drak had begun. 3 days of tense meetings followed. The colony governor, a stern woman named Director Park, had initially wanted to capture the dragons and drive away the Drak ships. But after seeing the Drak's advanced technology and their clear ability to take what they wanted by force, she agreed to talks. Gia found herself in the middle of it all. She sat in the colony's main hall, Ty and Hannah beside her, as humans and Drak tried to understand each other. So these creatures are royalty among your people? Director Park asked, looking at the dragons with a mix of fear and wonder. General Rock nodded. They are the last of our royal bloodline. Their parents were explorers who crashed on your world 20 years ago. The eggs were placed in stasis, waiting for rescue. And the girl? Park pointed to Gia. What is her role in this? She saved them, Rock said simply. Fed them, protected them, bonded with them. By our laws, she is now part of the royal family. Director Park laughed, a short, sharp sound. An orphan girl from the colony edge? A royal. Gia felt her face grow hot with embarrassment. Through their bond, Ty and Hannah sent waves of comfort and pride. They didn't care about her background. To them, she was worthy. Status at birth means nothing to the Drak, Rock said, his voice cool. It is one's actions that define worth. This child showed courage and compassion when she found two strange creatures. What would your people have done, Director? Studied them, sold them, killed them? Park had no answer to that. By the end of the 3rd day, an agreement was reached. The Drak would provide the colony with advanced technology, better farming systems, medical equipment, energy sources in exchange for mining rights to certain minerals in the hills. They would also offer protection from any threats that might come from space. And Gia would go with them when they left. You don't have to decide right now, Director Park told her after the meeting. It was the first time the director had spoken to Gia directly. This is your home. We can find a way to keep the dragons here. But Gia knew better. Through her bond with Ty and Hannah, she understood how important they were to their people. And the dragons would not stay without her. New Bizen was never really my home, Gia said quietly. Not since my parents died. Home is where you belong. I belong with them now, the night before their departure. Gia visited her old hiding place one last time. The small maintenance shaft seemed tiny now. Had she really lived in this cramped space? She gathered her few belongings, a photo of her parents, a book her mother had loved, a small carving her father had made. As she turned to leave, she found Director Park waiting outside. "I wanted to see where you lived," the director said, looking around with surprise. All this time, right under our noses, Gia said nothing. What was there to say? The colony had forgotten her, as it forgot all its orphans. "I failed you," Park said suddenly. "Failed all the children who lost parents in the fever. We were so busy trying to survive, we forgot to live with compassion." She held out a small device. "This contains all our records of your parents, their work, their history. I thought you might want it." Gia took the device, touched by the unexpected gesture. "Thank you. The Dracs say you'll be their queen someday," Park said. "When the dragons reach maturity." "I don't know about that," Gia replied honestly. "I'm just trying to take care of my friends." Park smiled slightly. "That's probably why they chose you." The next morning, Gia stood on the colony's landing field. A large Drac ship waited, its ramp extended. Ty and Hannah were already inside, too large now to move comfortably through the colony streets. Many colonists had gathered to watch. Some looked afraid, others curious. A few of the orphans Gia had known waved to her. She waved back, feeling strange. Yesterday she had been invisible to these people. Today they all knew her name. General Rock stood at the bottom of the ramp. "It is time, young one." Gia nodded and began walking. Each step took her further from her old life and closer to an unknown future among the stars. Aboard the ship, she found Ty and Hannah waiting in a large chamber designed for them. The walls glowed with soft light, and the floor was covered with comfortable materials. "This will be your home during our journey," Rock explained. "We will reach the Drac homeworld in 1 month, through viewports." Gia watched New Bizen grow smaller as the ship rose into space. The colony became a tiny collection of lights, then vanished as clouds covered it. Soon the whole planet was just a blue-green ball below them. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Yes," Rock agreed. "Your world is young, but full of life. We will protect it." As promised, the ship accelerated, joining the larger fleet in orbit. Through her bond with the dragons, Gia felt their excitement. They were going home to a home they had never seen, but somehow remembered through their inherited memories. "There's one more thing you should know," Rock said as the fleet prepared to leave the system. "The Drac High Council has been in session since we found you. They have reviewed our reports about your bond with the royal heirs, and," Gia asked, suddenly nervous, "they have confirmed what our laws require. When we reach the homeworld, you will be formally recognized as Queen Regent until Ty and Hannah reach full maturity." Gia's mouth fell open. "Queen, me. But I don't know anything about being a queen. I don't know your customs, your history. You'll learn," Rock said gently. "And you have something more important than knowledge. You have the trust and love of the royal heirs. They chose you, Gia. They shared their essence with you. In the eyes of all Drac, that makes you worthy." Ty and Hannah moved closer, surrounding Gia with their warmth. Through their bond, they showed her images of the future of them growing larger, stronger, taking their place as leaders of their people. And always, Gia was with them, guiding them, learning with them. As the fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, stars streaking past the viewports, Gia placed her hands on the dragons' heads. The blue energy of their bond glowed around them, connecting them in ways deeper than blood or species. "I still don't know if I can be a queen," she said softly. Rock smiled, showing sharp teeth. "None of us know what we can be until we try. But I have seen how you care for these two, how you face danger to protect them. Those are the actions of a true leader." Gia looked out at the stars rushing past. Somewhere ahead was a new world, new challenges, a life she could never have imagined. "Then I'll try," she said. For them, the orphan who had saved a baby dragon stood tall, ready to face her destiny among the stars. The journey had just begun.